Yo, what's going on, guys? It's J-Mass, and today we're visiting a region of New England I've never visited before, until today, and that is Moosehead Lake here in Maine. Now, Moosehead Lake is by far the largest lake in Maine. It's surrounded by vast wilderness with many beautiful forests and mountains. In fact, it's in a pretty remote region of Maine, up here in the northern woods of Maine. And the largest town on Moosehead Lake is Greenville, which I'm actually staying nearby. But specifically right now, as I record this, I'm in Northeast Piscataquis, which is actually an unorganized territory here in Maine. And nestled deep in the woods here in Northeast Piscataquis, just east of Moosehead Lake, is the site of a plane wreck, the 1963 Boeing B-52C Stratofortress plane wreck, more formally known as the B-25 plane crash. On January 24th, 1963, sadly, a crew of 9 people crashed into the west side of Elephant Mountain. And of those 9, 7 perished, with only 2 surviving. Today we're going to be checking out the wreckage site of the B-25 plane crash here in Northeast Piscataquis, just east of Moosehead Lake. It's a site I've wanted to visit for many years now. It seems really interesting, but it is really remote. It is deep in the woods. In fact, to get here, I had to drive down some really sketchy dirt logging roads. And they were getting so sketchy that now I'm on foot. So I am going to be walking the rest of the way. I straight up just don't think my car can handle what's left. So why don't you guys join me? We're going to continue on walking down the remainder of the logging roads. It's only about 1.5 miles left for me. And then we're going to go check out the B-25 plane crash, which happened on January 24th, 1963. There is some wreckage still left behind and a memorial. And I do want to mention really quickly, because it is a memorial and because 7 people perished, I'm going to be treating that place with the utmost respect. It is a memorial that deserves our reverence and remembrance and respect, and I hope you guys do the same. So anyways, let's go check that out, see what it has in store, and I'll tell you more about the history as we do. Well, guys, we officially made it. We're now here at the site of the 1963 Boeing B-52C Stratofortress plane crash. As you can see, marked here by the B-52 memorial sign. And again, as I mentioned at the introduction, this is a memorial, so we're going to be treating this place with respect. And in doing so, I think I'm going to do the remainder of this video as a voiceover narration. It's a little busier here than I expected. There's actually quite a bit of people here visiting the memorial, which, for considering how rural we are, is a little surprising. That being said, as you can see, these logging roads are actually quite popular with ATVs. There were a lot of ATV drivers as I was making my way up there. So the rest of this video will be in voiceover narration, but I'm still going to tell you guys the history, details, information, and of course the aftermath of this plane crash. So with that being said, let's get started. We're going to take this trail down, see everything there is to see in honor of the 7 who lost their lives, and of course, the 2 who survived. So let's get started and see what's going on here. As I began my walk down the trail to the B-52 plane crash memorial, I truly had no idea what I was in for. Immediately at the entrance of the trailhead, you're greeted by a large hunk of metal debris, covered in American flags. Several signs greet you on the way in, confirming that this is a somber place that deserves respect and reverence. However, as I left the entrance and worked my way down the trail, I was immediately taken aback by the sheer scale of this crash site. This was one of the most powerful and visually striking memorials I've ever seen. Thus, before I dive into the history of this crash, I'd like to state that this site is truly heavy and traumatic, and viewer discretion is advised. On January 24th, 1963, a crew of 9 service members from Westover Air Force Base near Springfield, Massachusetts, were preparing to depart on a training exercise. This was the height of the Cold War, and tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were heating up in intensity. Thus, The purpose of this exercise was to practice methods of penetrating advanced capability radar in an effort to remain undetected by Soviet air defense. The flight would require low-level navigation using terrain-following radar, a first for the East Coast at the time. The crew had the choice of flying to one of two destinations, the Carolinas or Maine. After analyzing the weather, they picked Maine and began preparations to embark on the training mission. Before we continue, we should briefly discuss the plane they were flying. This was the Boeing B-52 Stratofortress, a strategic heavy bomber in use by the U.S. Air Force since 1955. It was especially useful during the Cold War as it was nuclear capable. However, it can also carry conventional munitions, and it has done so in many military engagements. Important to note is that, despite the crew's training exercise requiring low-level flight, the B-52 was not fit for low-level flying at high speeds, especially in mountainous regions. Just a few years earlier, in 1959 in Oregon, another B-52 crashed after a low-level flight. At exactly 12:11 p.m., the crew of 9 took off, flying northeast towards Maine. After calibrating their equipment and preparing for the exercise, the B-52 descended to a lower altitude, around 2:30 p.m. Just as they were passing over the town of Brownville, the B-52 encountered significant turbulence. The pilot and crew commander attempted to climb to a higher altitude, but this resulted in the vertical stabilizer breaking off and creating a loud noise. Almost immediately, the aircraft forced a 40-degree right turn and began flying downward towards the ground. By this point, a crash landing was all but inevitable. Thus, the pilot ordered that all crew members abandon the plane immediately. Unfortunately, only the upper flight deck had upward ejection seats. The lower deck had downward ejection seats, and spare crew did not have any ejection seats. Only the navigator, pilot, and co-pilot, in that order, were able to eject and escape the aircraft. The remaining 6 lower deck crew were effectively trapped, unable to leave in time as the B-52 hurled its way downward. At exactly 2:55 p.m., the plane crashed into the west side of Elephant Mountain in Northeast Piscataquis, Maine, just a few miles east of Moosehead Lake. The remaining 6 crew members died instantly. While the other 3 escaped the plummeting aircraft, not all was well. The co-pilot crashed into a tree 1 mile away, resulting in his death. Meanwhile, the navigator's parachute was not properly deployed, and he suffered severe injuries, including a fractured skull and broken ribs. The pilot, who was able to deploy his parachute, safely landed on top of a tree. It is important to note that this crash occurred in January, in the midst of a harsh New England winter. Thus, the ground was covered in thick snow, and the temperatures were brutally cold. With the 2 survivors far from civilization, and the navigators suffering serious injuries, they were forced to spend the night in the freezing cold Maine wilderness, relying only on what little they could salvage from the B-52 survival kit to keep them safe and warm. Meanwhile, around the time of the crash, a nearby local witnessed the plane descend into the wilderness, with the plume of black smoke arising shortly thereafter. This immediately resulted in the organization of a massive search party, consisting of the Maine State Police, Civil Air Patrol, Air Force units, and local volunteers. The snow-covered logging roads were cleared of 10 miles, or 16 kilometers, of heavy snow, and some rescuers resorted to using snowmobiles and dog sleds to find the crash site. Eventually, the 2 survivors were discovered, and at 11 a.m. the next day, they were picked up by a helicopter and airlifted to a nearby hospital, where they eventually both recovered. While the pilot returned to active duty again, the navigator was forced to receive a leg amputation after severe frostbite. Ever since the plane crash on January 24, 1963, the site has become a local landmark, as well as a place of reverence. Every year since the 1970s, the Moosehead Riders Snowmobile Club makes an annual snowmobile ride to the site, and a small memorial ceremony is held. Interestingly, in 1993, the navigator himself returned to the crash site during one of these annual snowmobile rides. Years later, in 2013, the 50th anniversary of the crash, the pilot returned as well, and that same year, on Memorial Day, both the navigator and the pilot met up once again at the crash site. Today, the site is completely open to the public, accessible only through gravel and dirt logging roads, owned and operated by Plum Creek Timber Company. Hey guys, it's me again. Just jumping into the video really briefly because I have some off-the-cuff thoughts I'd like to share with you all really quick. And by the way, I do apologize for all the bugs and mosquitoes coming into view. I know they're hovering around the camera. My apologies. But I just want to say really quickly, as I wander around the site and see all of the debris and wreckage, everything you see behind me and more, really, there only is one word that comes to mind. Only one word can do this place justice, and that's carnage. I mean, this is absolute carnage. This is now the fourth abandoned plane crash I've visited, and this is by far the most devastating. Not to say the other three were any less devastating, but I think it's more the visual. I mean, you just get non-stop debris and wreckage here. Again, it is absolute carnage. It felt like the entire time I was walking, I just saw non-stop pieces of metal, tires, random equipment, and other plane-related paraphernalia. I mean, this is truly a devastating, destructive site. And of all the abandoned plane crashes I visited on this channel, this one moved me the most. Frankly, I can't lie. This one, it's a really sobering experience. Again, there were 9 people on this plane and only 2 survived. And the only reason they arguably survived is because they ejected from the plane just in time to land safely. The other 7, they completely perished. 6 on board and 1 hit a tree. It's truly just sad to see, but it's even more sad to get the visual. Again, the absolute carnage, the wreckage, the debris. As I wander around the site, it's a chilling experience, to say the least. As I mentioned, this crash site is truly a powerful place. The sheer amount of metal debris littering the forest floor goes to show you just how devastating and destructive this tragedy was. The debris vastly ranges in size, from small metal shards to large hunks of the aircraft, including the wings and tires. At most of the debris, small American flags are placed in honor of those who perished. Aside from the main trail that leads from the logging road entrance to the actual crash site, several smaller trails snake through the wreckage, leading you deep into the wilderness. One thing I noticed was how seemingly endless this wreckage was. I would look deep into the woods, far away from where I was standing, and still see metal debris in the distance. It truly felt like a sea of carnage and destruction, serving as a blunt reminder of what happened that day. Perhaps the most striking debris left behind is the B-52's fuselage, which has been transformed into the site's standout memorial. Covered in American flags and small makeshift memorials, this fuselage is the largest piece of the aircraft left behind. It is completely wrecked and destroyed, yet large enough to visualize the plane before it crashed. This fuselage is located at the very end of the trail, making it the most devastating part of the site and leaving a serious emotional impact. A black slate memorial stands beside this wreckage, listing all 9 crew members of the B-52, the 7 who sadly perished, and the 2 who survived. You can see their names listed here, and the 2 survivors mentioned at the very end of the memorial. Rest in peace to those who died that day. You will not be forgotten. Hey, thank you guys for joining me. I've been J-Mass as always, and today we explored the wreckage site of the 1963 Boeing B-52C Stratofortress deep within the woods of Northeast Piscataquis, Maine. And man, that was such a tragic sight. I mean, a truly fascinating historic relic, but really devastating to see. It was by far one of the most visually striking locations I've ever personally filmed and visited. I mean, seeing all of the debris and wreckage material just scattered across the woods, like truly in a never-ending supply of debris. I mean, it really struck me hard. 7 people perished that day. There were 9 on board, 2 survived, but 7 perished. It's unspeakable to think of. And again, I've covered quite a few plane crashes on this YouTube channel thus far. 3 before this one. This is my 4th, but this one definitely impacted me the most. I think it was just the fact that the plane was so destroyed. 2 of the other plane crashes I saw, they were intact. One was pretty destroyed as well, but there wasn't as much debris, and it was centered around one specific location. But that was like spread out across an entire forest. It truly was just carnage, like I said. So fascinating place to see, but again, RIP to all those who died, and serious respect to those who lived. It's a tragic event, January 24th, 1963, the B-52. plane crash, but we'll always remember that, and it was really interesting to visit. And if you ever find yourself in the Moosehead Lake region of Maine, you know, whether you're staying in Greenville or whatever, definitely check out the B-52 Memorial. It's truly fascinating. You can either drive there, although I will mention, definitely make sure you have a car that can manage those log roads. I mean, my car was fine for like 2/3 of it, and then the last third had some really sketchy parts, so I had to walk the remainder of the way. So again, definitely make sure you have a car that can manage those really rugged logging roads. They're dirt most of the time, but there's some really coarse parts. Or you can take an ATV, or you can hike. But it is really deep in the woods. There's no cell phone service. You just got to make sure you have a map and get right there. But again, it is absolutely fascinating, and I'm glad you guys got to join me. As always, my name's been J-Mass. If you love traveling all across New England, checking out abandoned sites, historic sites, and everything in between, I'm always doing that on this channel, so feel free to subscribe to the channel. I do want to give a major shout out to all my channel members. You can see them all right here. You guys are awesome, and I'd love it if you, too, viewer of this video, considered becoming a channel member as well. You'd be supporting me and the channel directly, and I truly appreciate it. Or you can follow me on Instagram, at JMassOfficial. That's at JMassOfficial. But I've been J-Mass as always. That was the B-52 plane crash site in Northeast Piscataquis, Maine, here within the Moosehead Lake region. Again, a region of New England I've never been to, and one of the few remaining regions I've never explored. I've pretty much covered every region in New England except for this and like a few others. And by the way, right over there, that's Moosehead Lake. I'm actually in my campsite right now, Lily Bay State Park. Beautiful area. I'm actually exploring it right now, and I was doing a little exploration when I decided to film this outro. But there it is, Moosehead Lake. Beautiful. All right, guys, I'll catch you later. See ya.